Everybody, Moonbase Alpha, thanks for watching. So we got a Springfield XDs here. This is a 45 ACP version of the Springfield XDs. In my opinion, this is the one to get. What this gun offers, which is kind of unique to some of the other subcompact polymer handguns that are available on the market right now, is that 45 ACP chambering. You cannot get a 45 ACP in the Smith & Wesson Shield. You can't get that in the Walther PPS. You can't get that in the Glock. Whatever series pistol that would be. They actually have a single stack 45, and it's not very slim, the Glock 36. There really aren't a whole lot of single stack slimline 45 ACPs out there, and when I went to go look for one, I like the 45 as a round. I think it's a very potent round, especially if you load it right. Federal HSTs, 230 grain plus Ps. Oh my gosh, that's a massive, powerful hollow point. And it's a fight stopper right there. And I don't buy for a second that 45 is that much more powerful than other rounds, but it does expand more. And if you're looking for maximum expansion, really good penetration, fight stopping capability, something that can reach in and touch vital organs, nick arteries, something that can just take out massive swaths of human flesh, 45 will do it. And it's a mean round, especially when you load it right, like I said. So I wanted to get one for my collection per se. I hate to call it an arsenal, but for my own personal use, I do conceal carry pretty much everywhere I go. And to have a 45 there is kind of an interesting proposition. However, I have found that this gun with that 4-inch barrel on it is a little uncomfortable to carry. Now, part of that is because of the holster I'm carrying in. I'm not a huge fan of this holster. I'm just going to be completely straight out with you. I don't like a lot of the things that are super popular on the market these days. Like, for whatever reason, people think that certain items out there, like for example the Glock 43, I looked at the facts on the Glock 43 and I decided it wasn't for me. This is a holster that should be a good holster. This is a Bravo concealment. I don't remember exactly what model this is, but this is the kind that basically copies G-Code's holsters, has that fuzz on the outside, and it is a two clip holster, like the Incog, the original Incog, and it's an okay holster. I'm not a huge fan of this particular one. Of the Bravo concealment holsters that I own, this is the best of them. I think this is decent, but it has like a little too much stuff right in this area for whatever reason, and I find this really difficult to carry. It's a little uncomfortable for appendix carry. Now, I don't know if this was meant to be... Oh, this is the Acer, that's what it's called. I don't know if this was meant to be an appendix carry rig, but I think they actually do term it an appendix carry rig, and I typically carry appendix. I think this is a good gun to do it with, and I'll kind of talk about that in just a minute, but I've found that this is generally a little bit more uncomfortable than what I'm willing to bear on a daily basis. So this gun is it's an occasional carry. I do carry it on occasion, but it's not what I would call an everyday carry gun. So I'll just kind of preface this review by saying that. Now, the XDs, I think, is a great appendix carry gun because it has a grip safety. Now, I know a lot of people don't like grip safeties. I'm kind of in that camp, honestly. The XD, the Mod 2 or whatever they just came out with, I think is retarded because you can't manipulate the slide without depressing the grip safety. That's stupid because, you can't basically do one-handed manipulations with that gun. But anyway, long story short, this one has a grip safety on it, which means that basically you can't shoot yourself in the nuts. If something snags your trigger and, for whatever reason, and you don't have that grip safety depressed, you can basically, when you reholster this gun, just put your thumb up on the top sight here and reholster it. And even if something snags your trigger, you can't shoot yourself in the junk, so that's kind of nice. It does have an ambi mag release, which is cool. The mags do eject like they didn't want to actually be in the gun in the first place. And they're really nice magazines. They're very high polish, stainless steel mags with a decent floor plate on it. Now, I will say this, I'm not a huge fan of the extended magazines because they have a really big floor plate on them. And they look like this. This is the 6 round. These come with the gun, by the way. There are 6 rounds that come with the gun. This thing can also slide up a little bit, and I found that this basically acts as a weight, this little shroud here, and it has a tendency, you know, unless you carry this in a spare mag holster, has a tendency in a pocket to just kind of lay in a really awkward position, and I don't know, I'm just not a huge fan of that particular feature there. But this is the 6-round magazine. I'll show you what that looks like, in case you've never seen one of these with a 6-round magazine in it. So, you know, it doesn't really extend the grip that much. It's still a little bit smaller than a Commander size 1911. And I know a lot of you guys are going to say, well, why wouldn't I just carry a 1911? Well, you know, I kind of think of 1911s as range pistols. I'm not going to say I hate 1911s. I just have never really understood why people are so obsessed with them. Because they really are. I don't have a practical use for 1911, and I'm really objective when it comes to guns. You know, the stuff that I carry especially. You know, unless I have a practical use for it, I'm probably not going to buy it. So, you know, I understand range pistols, that's fun and everything like that. There are other guns I'd rather shoot than a 1911. I just don't really have a need for one, and they're so expensive. I mean, they're really expensive. For quality built 1911, and, you know, I'm not going to say that they all suck, but there are some that are, you know, some that are better than others, and even some big names, Kembers, oh my god. They're horrible guns, and I would never buy a Kember. I've had friends that have had Kembers, and they don't work. Small ones especially, they're just terrible. But, you know, I would take this over 1911 any day. For one, it's a simplified operating system. It's a, you know, Browning short recoil, but it is actually simplified. It has a linkless. It doesn't have the locking lugs up here. It's just a typical Browning short recoil. For another, it's super thin. I mean, this gun is about 1 inch thick. Very, very thin. It's as thin as any other subcompact polymer gun on the market. So, you know, take your pick. Like I said, Smith & Wesson Shield, Glock 43, you know, the Walther PPS. Now, the PPS is a little bit slimmer than this gun, because PPS is like 0.9 inches, and this is a little over 1 inch. I think this is about the same thickness as a Glock 43, though. So, yeah, it's decent. It works. It's much, much thinner than a 1911, because you don't have the grip panels on it. And, you know, in my opinion, it's more reliable. There's fewer working parts in this gun. It's a striker-fired gun, which makes it a little bit simpler in terms of the overall operating mechanism. I just think it's a great gun. And, you know, as far as overall operation goes, function goes, I think that the XDS has a small 1911 beat, especially in the reliability field. Small 1911s are typically pretty finicky. Now, a couple things I don't like about this gun. For one, the rear sight. It doesn't have any method for which I can snag it and do one-handed manipulations. The good news is the top of the slide is actually cut right there, and that actually is very, very sharp, and you can actually get that onto a belt and use that portion of the slide right there to manipulate it one-handed. I'm not a huge fan of loaded chamber indicators, especially not big ones like this. I'm going to load this gun just so you can see what it looks like. But you can see it's a fairly pronounced one. Now, it's not as big as Ruger's, but it is fairly large. The other thing I don't like is the ejection port is, in my opinion, a little bit small. It also has a fairly cheesy ejector on this particular gun. The ejector is actually a little thin piece of steel covered in a polymer, and I do not like it. It's kind of a cheesy ejector. You know, beyond that, I don't really have a lot of criticisms on the XDS, other than the fact that it's a freaking XD. Now, I got to get into this. I mean, this is going to be a little bit controversial. Springfield, they are using a name that has nothing to do with the original Springfield arsenal. They brought in the XDs, and this is the same criticism you're going to hear from a lot of gun guys. And, you know, I know it's kind of drama, and I don't normally play into this, but you know, they brought in the XD as the HS2000, and it just didn't sell well. Then they rebranded it, made it into the Springfield XD, and then all of a sudden jacked up the price on these things. Beyond that, you know, just the name thing, I've never been a big fan of the regular XDs. They have a really high bore axis, and for a striker-fired gun, I've always felt that they were just a little too high. You know, take it or leave it. This one here is fine, though. I don't think it's ridiculous in terms of the bore axis, though. Overall build quality, I think, is pretty good. I can't really think of any reason to fault the pistol in terms of build quality. I mean, the frame is very well molded. No ridiculous seams or lines or anything like that. It does work. It's a reliable gun. and it is relatively accurate. Now, I don't know if it's as reliable as my Shield. My Shield at this point, I have a couple thousand rounds through it. I know it's a reliable gun. That gun can take a licking and keep on ticking. I don't know if this is as reliable as the Smith & Wesson Shield. I just haven't had the chance to put that much ammunition through this gun. The capacity is also kind of suffering, but you know, it is what it is. You are carrying a 45 ACP, and like I said, that's a powerful round. It has the capacity to take people out of a fight. So that's all in the good. You know, I don't carry this, like I said, very often. Primarily, it's because I just don't like this holster. If I had gone with the 3.5-inch version, the 3.5-inch barrel version, I probably would like this gun a little bit better. That might have been a mistake going to the 4-inch. So my advice to you is, if you're going to buy an XDS, buy the 3.5-inch version. And if you like it so much that you want to get the 4-inch version, get the 4-inch. But the 3.5 should be your default. Anyway, just some insight on the XDS. Hopefully this was interesting or informative for you. If you like the video, please subscribe to my channel. And as always, I certainly appreciate you watching. Illegitimate non-carborundum.